Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here, and welcome to episode 15 of Gold Goes to the Movies. I know it's been a little gap between recent videos. Unfortunately, life and work has got in the way, but I think, as I said last time that happened, it allows me to kind of get a bank of movies watched. Cinema releases, new ones on streaming, various very different movies to kind of chat about. Even a couple of little Christmas movies at the end, just in case you need them next year. But yeah, we're going to veer from one kind of genre to the next. We've got loads of different ones. And yeah, some I really enjoyed, some are a bit meh. Some you may have completely different opinions on. And that's the beauty of going to the movies or watching any film, is that we can all see it in completely different ways. My most recent movie viewing experience came with a trip with my wife to the cinema to watch A Complete Unknown. Which, if you're not aware, is directed by James Mangold, who most recently did Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Personally, I didn't mind that at all, but I am a huge Indiana Jones fan. Other people maybe didn't like it quite as much, and certainly the box office didn't like it as much as well. But if you're holding that against him, then he's got a brilliant bank of work behind that. Ford versus Ferrari, Logan, Walk the Line, Girl Interrupted, Copland as well. You might remember that, the old one with Stallone, De Niro, Keitel. Was a powerhouse of a movie, that one as well. So James Mangold co-wrote this with Jay Cox, based on the book Dylan Goes Electric by Elijah Wood. If you're not aware, you haven't seen even the trailer, Timothy Chalamet, man of the moment, stars as Bob Dylan, and it's set during his kind of time in the 60s. There's no doubting Timothy Chalamet even puts everything into this performance. He imbues Bob Dylan. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a Bob Dylan expert from everything I've ever seen of him. Certainly any kind of documentaries, things like that as well. Yeah, he's kind of, he's going to get as close as you're probably going to get to playing him. And apparently he remained in character kind of throughout filming, or certainly a lot of it, studied hours and hours of unreleased footage as well, old footage, newly discovered recordings. He plays the guitar, the harmonica as well during this. It's all live. All of his performances were recorded live using microphones from the era as well, to give them that kind of authentic feel. And that's kind of the biggest stuff for me, is you're transported to the 1960s. That was what my wife loved about it the most. She's not a huge Bob Dylan music fan. I wouldn't say I was, but actually I grew to kind of really like a lot of the music I heard in the movie. But for her, she was won over by the whole period setting and how authentic it felt. And for me, there's no doubting Chalamet's performance. It's very good. What I would say, if I'm going to give it, I don't even think it's right to criticise the performance for this. I think it's maybe more the script, the story. We don't know what was cut out of it. There's maybe not much light and shade to it. He kind of, it's all about kind of just this essence of Dylan, rather than maybe finding different sides to him and within his character. But maybe that's just me being ultra picky, but I'll talk about a bit more about that in a moment. I would say Edward Norton, I thought, was excellent as Peter Seeger. Apparently he replaced Benedict Cumberbatch, who was set to play the role, had to leave due to scheduling conflicts. Elle Fanning as Sylvie Rousseau, which apparently was based on Susie Rotolo. Those two characters, Pete Seeger and Sylvie, are the two characters you'll probably feel the most sympathy with by the time the movie comes to a close. They're two characters that are very much swept up in Dylan's kind of creative, just kind of, I think, America changing in a way, whirlwind, and they're kind of crashed back down by the end of it. They're the two that you probably, like I say, feel the most sympathy with. I mean, apparently Bob Dylan kind of gave his blessing to it, or certainly was involved in aspects of the making of it and trying to help out in various conversations and things. I wouldn't say he's portrayed in the most glowing light. I don't think that's one thing. I think it celebrates his music and his talent more than the man himself. And I think that's probably right. It doesn't have to be a gushing tribute biopic type thing. And yeah, I think that's, I would say the name of the movie, A Complete Unknown, probably a fitting one, because if I'm going to be critical from my side of things, and again, this may be a very different experience for other people, but I didn't know too much about Bob Dylan going in, other than very much kind of surface level stuff. And I knew, a couple of his songs. I knew that he was a figure kind of associated with change in America during the 60s as well. Would I say that I really knew much more about him coming out of this movie almost 2.5 hours later? I'd probably say no. I learned certainly about some of his relationships and the people that he was with, just how huge he became. I must admit, I didn't realise just how, I know he's an iconic singer, I didn't realise just how ridiculous his life kind of became in terms of fame and popularity and everything. And just how much kind of fury it caused in the folk music scene when he switched to electric guitars. I mean, who knew folk music fans could get so excessively angry? They get very angry. And this was all apparently was true as well. But I wouldn't say I came away after 2.5 hours of really knowing what drove him, or too much maybe about his background, his upbringing, and perhaps that's the essence of it. He is kind of enters your lives and changes everything, and then goes away. Doesn't really go away with it. He enters your life and changes everything, I suppose. That's what he does to characters around him. There's a point when Sylvie says to him, I think it's quite early in the movie, she says, like, I just know nothing about your family or your past. And I think she might as well be speaking for all of us by the end of the movie. I wouldn't say I came out of it knowing what made him the person he was. I got the sense he was someone that felt he was almost like this vessel that had to kind of help change happen. But I don't know where that came from and why and what drove him to become that. It almost felt like he was just this kind of poor unfortunate soul that, that was just what was going to happen to him. He just had to deal with it. But yeah, that's not to say it's not an enjoyable movie experience. I really did enjoy it. And the finale at the 1965 Newport Folk Festival, it was a kind of a controversial, groundbreaking performance that he put in. It is fascinating. That sounds like it shouldn't be fascinating in any way, shape or form, a folk festival, for maybe those who don't know what happened at the festival. But there's very much this feeling of something's coming. Something's coming. What's it going to be? Is it going to be amazing? Is it going to be something that's going to cause real issues? And that's kind of almost sense of dread among some of the characters, or excitement among others as well. And that's what's played on. And it's good. I mean, the music is fantastic. Chalamet sings 40 songs throughout the film. Supporting cast all really good around him as well. Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez. Scoot McNairy, who turns up in everything and has a brilliant name, Scoot McNairy. I love that. He's got a mostly non-speaking role as Woody Guthrie, who's Dylan's inspiration. He comes to visit him right at the start of the film, and periodically kind of turns up in the movie. He's very good in what is obviously a limited role because of what Guthrie was suffering with at that point. Who else you got? You got Dan Fogler as Albert Grossman. He's good. Boyd Holbrook, who was in Mangold's indie movie. Excuse me. He plays Johnny Cash. Of course, you might be aware, I said it earlier if you weren't, Mangold had directed Walk the Line, which was the story about Cash, Johnny Cash. Joaquin Phoenix, of course, played him in that movie, but he's got Boyd Holbrook playing him in this, and he's got kind of like just little key moments which are very good. And it should be pointed out that Chalamet, Barbaro, Norton, and Holbrook all did their own singing in the movie as well. And it's I always find that it must be so difficult to kind of not do an impression of someone while also capturing their essence, and that's well done. Chalamet's on a bit of a roll right now, isn't he? He's doing very, very well. And I think it's 8 Academy Awards the film's been nominated for: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Timothée Chalamet, Best Supporting Actor for Ed Norton, Best Supporting Actress for Barbaro. It'll be interesting to see whether it walks away with any of those. There's some very strong competition, and it is a good film, and it goes to pretty remarkable lengths in some aspects to kind of capture the authenticity of it. But I just wonder whether it delved deep enough or not for me. That was my only thing about it. But yeah, really enjoyed it, and the music's remarkable. It's fantastic. Had a budget of said to be between $50 million and $70 million, and it's made just under $90 million so far at the box office. It's an interesting one. I wonder whether, especially maybe abroad, kind of Bob Dylan aspect of whether is as huge abroad as he was in America. Maybe not. I could be kind of seeing that in a slightly skewed way because it's not someone I kind of was brought up listening to a lot of his music. It may well be that he's hugely popular, but certainly maybe the box office for it maybe doesn't reflect that. I don't know, but yeah, it's a good film and it is well worth a watch. It is. It's very well made. Next up, another cinema trip. I did make this one a couple of weeks ago. Probably a more visceral experience, and that is Nosferatu. If you're not aware what Nosferatu is, it's the long-awaited Robert Eggers remake of the 1922 classic Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror, which in itself was a rather controversial adaptation of Dracula. It's kind of led to lots of lawsuits and court cases with the Bram Stoker's family and everything, which I think has been sorted now. I think I could be wrong. So if you're not aware who Robert Eggers is, he did The Lighthouse, The Northman, The Witch. This is actually the first film I think he's done without the at the start. It's a movie that's going to split opinions. Certainly a good example was I went with a mate who is a huge vampire movie aficionado. He loves them. He absolutely drinks them in. He's kind of in his house. There are just, or certainly his old house is tons of DVDs and everything of vampire movies. He didn't really enjoy it. He didn't enjoy it that much. It's not your average expected vampire movie is probably the best way to say it. I, on the other hand, did enjoy it. It had a feel of, I think, maybe the 1922 movie. It looks incredible. It's mostly filmed in the Czech Republic. Some of the exteriors are done in Transylvania as well. And there's this kind of constant brooding darkness and menace to it all. Like something's coming. Something's, just lurking in the shadows. And I really liked it. Yes, at points, maybe the dialogue and the acting borders that very fine line between, is this amazing or is it slightly ridiculous? Should I almost be laughing at this? Is it a bit pantomimey? But I think maybe that's kind of more, I don't know, maybe that's kind of going back to the old feel of the film, perhaps. I could be doing it a disservice, but I just love the look of it. It's all filmed in 35mm film. It's got this really saturated look, and that's all down to the cinematographer Yarin Blaschk. I'm probably killing the pronunciation of that, which maybe fits with Nosferatu. He's been nominated for an Oscar for this, and I can absolutely see why. Bill Skarsgård, once again taking on a big kind of horror character after having done Pennywise in it. He plays the Nosferatu himself and also Count Orlok, the alter ego. I must admit, I completely forgot he was in it until about halfway through because he's so kind of buried under makeup and prosthetics and things like that. And yeah, he's very good. I thought Lily Rose Depp is excellent as well. I haven't actually seen her before. I haven't seen her in stuff. And yeah, she was really, really held the film. She's kind of in most frames of the film, or certainly a huge chunk of them, other than Nicholas Holt's kind of travels. Nicholas Holt, kind of mentioned there, she plays Ellen Hutter, Lily Rose Depp. Nicholas Holt plays her husband, Thomas, who's like this incredibly earnest character. Lily Rose Depp kind of gets more to play with. She's a troubled lady, is probably the best way to put it. You've got Aaron Taylor Johnson's in there as well. Maybe a little bit one note for me, his character. I've seen him far better than this. I mean, I've loved loads of stuff he's done. Even like Money Train, Bullet Train. I think he's so good in that as well. And yeah, this probably didn't show the biggest range for him, which I know he's got. Still better than probably Craven the Hunter, which we spoke about in the last video. You've also got Emma Corrin, who's very versatile. She seems to be everywhere right now. I saw her in Deadpool and Wolverine, wasn't she? She was in that as well. She's given a lot more to do as Aaron Taylor Johnson's wife in this, and Ellen's best friend, Lily Rose Depp's best friend, and she's very good. She's really good. Ralph Ineson, he will always be kind of the chap from The Office for me. David Brent's probably wrongly chosen hero of sorts at the Office, and I know that's doing him a huge disservice because he's in so many TV shows and films now. He's got this very distinctive kind of northern accent, and he's carved out a great career for himself. He's a very good actor. He's actually terrific in this. He spends a lot of his scenes probably with most of the cast, actually. He's kind of interspersed among them, but later on spends a lot of time with Willem Dafoe, who continues his relationship with Eggers, and he plays his supporting role as Professor Albin Eberhard von Franz, and he's good fun. He is good in it. I think Anna Taylor-Joy and Harry Styles were meant to be in this film, but they had to kind of drop out due to scheduling conflicts. Like I say, it won't be for everyone. It's dark, it's gory at times. The pace crawls along at certain points, and then suddenly it leaps on, a little bit like Nosferatu himself, just suddenly pouncing from the shadows. None of the actors are up for Academy Awards, but the director and or the movie itself, actually, I don't think are up. But it is up for cinematography, like I said, costume design, production design, makeup, hairstyling, and it's all there. It's all there on the screen. You can see it. It is fantastic looking. And to be fair, we talk about box office for the last film. Nosferatu has made $173 million at the worldwide box office, and that's off a budget of around $50 million. So it's been well watched. And yeah, let me know your comments on it, because like I said, I do think it will split opinions. Next off the movie list, we're on the small screen with this one. It's Netflix, and a 13-time Oscar-nominated movie in the shape of Emilia Perez, which has kind of in recent weeks seen everything go a little bit pear-shaped, I think, in terms of various criticism and various things about its star as well. I mean, let's start with the actual film itself before we get into all of that. It's written and directed by Jacques Audiard. There's been a lot said about the fact that this is a Spanish-speaking musical set in Mexico, dealing with trans identity as well, yet the main cast and crew are all non-Mexican, and apparently it was filmed in a studio outside Paris. So there's been some gripes about that, understandably so. It's fair to say Mexican audiences have, at the least, not reacted well to the accents in the movie, and at the worst, unhappy that their country is kind of as the backdrop of drug cartels and death and musical sequences set amid the backdrop, really, of hundreds of thousands of missing people. It's not gone down well, certainly with people from Mexico. The story itself, if you weren't aware, it's about a lawyer offered the job of helping this cartel boss transition into living as a woman and starting a very different life, trying to help people. Yet kind of old links to the past, a bit of jealousy and things like that end up threatening that existence, and yeah, it all kind of falls apart. And the movie has been nominated for Academy Awards for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress for Carla Sofia Gascon, who became the first openly trans woman to be nominated in that category, Best Supporting Actress for Zoe Saldana. Selena Gomez is also in the film, Edgar Ramirez is also in the film. I liked aspects of it, I would say. It's certainly never dull. Again, we talk about Nosferatu, it all being up on the screen. That is certainly the case with Emilia Perez as well. It's all up there. The musical scenes range from kind of interesting to completely outlandish. The acting's good as far as I could see. I've never been to South America, actually, so I don't feel kind of placed to... I've never been fortunate enough to go there, so I don't feel well placed to kind of speak about the accents and whether they're any good or not. But I found it interesting. My wife probably wasn't such a huge fan of it. It was a little bit maybe too out there for her in terms of kind of certainly the strangeness of some of the musical scenes and the music itself. And she is someone that likes a musical. But yeah, I thought it was okay. Would I say it's 13 Academy Award nominations good? Probably not. But certainly there's certainly a lot of interesting parts to it. The other problem it's now got is that some historic offensive social media posts from Gascon have surfaced and, understandably led to criticism aplenty, including from the director, Audiard. And what was kind of this celebrated movie, I guess, about diversity is kind of backfiring now. And I'm very intrigued to see whether it will now kind of be shunned at the Oscars for various kind of controversies and things around it now or not. We'll see. But it's certainly an interesting movie. It's one that I would say watch to make your own mind up about. Next up, veering in a completely different direction, is Longlegs, which is now available on Amazon Prime Video. It's had a very clever marketing campaign, this movie. It's with one advert in particular playing around. It's had the sound of the main lead actress, Micah Monroe, her heartbeat, and you can hear this heartbeat as it's essentially set up like, this is the heartbeat of Micah Monroe as she enters the room and sees Nicolas Cage's Longlegs for the first time, something along those lines. And it's a really creepy advert, and you just hear this heartbeat like slamming into her chest kind of thing as she sees him in all his, glory is the right word, but certainly it seemed to have worked because audiences went and saw it. It made $127 million off a budget of less than $10 million. It was the highest grossing independent film of 2024. It's directed by Osgood Perkins, who's got his background in horror films. He did the upcoming and much anticipated The Monkey, which I'm really looking forward to. The film itself, the plot, it's set in 1990s in Oregon, in America. Monroe's playing FBI agent Lee Harker, who has this kind of uncanny ability of using intuition, or perhaps it's something else. That's kind of what we're teased with. It's got a bit of Silence of the Lambs mixed with the occult, and it's kind of this interesting cross-genre. So she's chasing this doll-making serial killer who's been going around murdering families. All of them have this key link that they have a 9-year-old daughter born on the 14th of the month. I should stress, despite all of that, this isn't really... I was expecting a bit of a jump scare horror movie, and it's not that. It's more of a suspense, Silence of the Lambs type film. There's a fair bit of kind of suspense and certainly tense scenes in the first half of it, especially one bit set around Monroe's house in the woods, which is very, very good. And it kind of goes in a bit of a slightly different direction the movie goes on. Not a bad way, but just a different way. Nicolas Cage, the titular character of Longlegs, you kind of see him in bits and pieces. He's kind of held in the background quite a lot. And when you do see him, it's got the Nicolas Cage suitably manic way about him, albeit buried under kind of makeup and prosthetics and things like that. Nicolas Cage was also one of the producers of the movie. This was actually the biggest opening of one of his films in the US since the Ghost Rider sequel 12 years ago. So, yeah, there's also solid support. You've got Blair Underwood in there, Alicia Witt, who's been loads of stuff, but I'll always remember from The Sopranos because I'm obsessed with The Sopranos. I enjoyed the film. I can see why it got plenty of praise. It uses what it has from that small budget really effectively. It's got a great look to it. The acting's really strong. The plot's interesting. My only qualm, and this, to be fair, I have this with 90% of horror films or sometimes thriller movies as well, is that the first half or maybe 3/4 of everything that's being built up, the tense, the suspense, everything, the kind of real mystery of the movie doesn't quite match with what you get at the end, but it's still a hell of a lot better than a lot of stuff you'll get in that genre. Yeah, good film. Honestly, I recommend seeing it. It's not probably what you're expecting. I wouldn't say you'll be sitting there behind the kind of cushion going like that or whatever. If you're kind of watching it downstairs, or the cover if you're watching it in your room, but it's still got a lot of suspense and tenseness to it. It's good. It is good. Next up is another movie that I think was on Amazon as well. That's Blink Twice, which is the directorial debut of Zoe Kravitz from a script she wrote with E.T. Feigenbaum. I hope I'm saying that right. It's packed with stars for a debut. You've got Naomi Ackie as the main lead alongside Channing Tatum's tech billionaire. Then I'll throw in there for you Adria Arjona, who's very good in Hitman and Andor, Christian Slater, Gina Davis, Haley Joel Osment, Kyle MacLachlan, Simon Rex, Aaliyah Shawkat, and it's an interesting movie. Again, another movie that starts as one thing and becomes something else. Becomes a bit of a psychological thriller, really, as it goes on. All these characters indulging in this kind of hedonistic holiday at this billionaire's home, only for the women to start noticing gaps in their memories. It's got some really unpleasant stuff that does actually happen in it. This kind of comes from an abuse of power. Thankfully, some much-needed comeuppance in the film as well, not giving too much away. For those interested, it made around $48 million from a $20 million budget. It's probably not going to be the movie that would have had a lot of box office appeal, but that's not to take away from what is a really interesting debut feature from Kravitz. Next up, documentary, one I've been waiting for a very long time. That's Superman, or Super/Man, the Christopher Reeve story. I watched it on Sky here in the UK. If you don't know, Christopher Reeve played Superman through 4 different movies. Probably less said about the 4th one, the better, but the other 3 I loved. The world saw him as Superman. Then in 1995, fell off a horse while he was competing in a competition, and he suffered this horrendous spinal cord injury, left him paralysed from the neck down, and he kind of then inspired the world with his attempts to kind of try to first move, and then hopefully one day the aim was to walk again. Full disclosure here, Christopher Reeve, through Superman, one of my childhood heroes. Absolutely grew up adoring him and everything Superman. I was so upset when he had the accident, and when he later died, I was absolutely devastated. I actually wrote an email to his wife Dana through their foundation just about how much he meant to me, and that was just kind of a part of my childhood, I think, coming out. And yeah, this is a really well-made documentary. It's got the full involvement of his family. That means you've got loads of home footage, warts and all as well. It doesn't just show him as this Superman-type inspirational character. It talks about the mistakes he made. It's kind of got him talking throughout it from previous kind of things he's done and documentaries and interviews and stuff as well. It's overlaid as this track. It's really good. It talks about his childhood. It's very difficult to please father, how difficult life was for him after the accident. But also for the whole family, while trying to be still this role model that everyone saw as this Superman. It also shows you some of the magical stuff as well, the bravery, the defiance, lobbying for others in similar conditions through the Christopher Reeve Foundation. And you'll probably end up loving Robin Williams even more than you previously did if you're a big fan like myself of him. And the part leading up to Christopher Reeve's first post-accident appearance at the Academy Awards it's just amazing. It's a brilliant piece of documentary work. It's been nominated for plenty of awards. It's got a BAFTA nomination. I think it won Critics' Choice Awards. It is a really moving documentary. Next up, just a quick fluffy one, kind of as we're getting towards the end of this. Probably slightly better than I expected to be. It's on Amazon. You're Cordially Invited, starring Will Ferrell and Reese Witherspoon. It's the tale of a wedding venue on an island that gets double booked. And it's got Ferrell as the father of one bride and Witherspoon as the sister of the other. It could probably be very dispensable stuff. But the two leads just bring that little extra oomph to it. And it's funnier than it should be. It's written and directed by Nicholas Stoller, who did Two Bad Neighbours movies, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Get Him to the Greek, which was a spin-off of that, 5 Year Engagement, which I like. But funny enough, my daughter only told me the other day that she really didn't enjoy that. But that's an aside. This movie, Cordially Invited, it's just pleasant enough Saturday night movie, really. The two leads kind of elevate it above what it should probably be. And just in passing, I did say I was going to talk very, very briefly about those two Christmas movies. Red One was one of them, the big Dwayne Johnson, Chris Evans, J.K. Simmons action Christmas flick. Is it good enough with the cast involved? No. Is it a little bit better than you probably expect it's going to be? Yeah, I think so. It got a bit of a kicking at the time. I didn't really have any problem with it. It certainly should be much funnier than it is. The script isn't great. Chris Evans does okay with what kind of he has to work with. J.K. Simmons is always good. Dwayne Johnson kind of phones it in a bit as a character we've seen a million times. But it's decent enough. If next Christmas you want to put something a little bit different on. Next up is a Nutcracker. That was completely fair to it. It's not really a Christmas film, but it falls in that category because it's set around that time. It's quite a nice little story. Strange enough, the director, David Gordon Green, he directed a trilogy of the recent Halloween films, Exorcist, Believer, and here he is doing this quite nice family tale about this man with not a lot of responsibility, played by Ben Stiller, taking on his sister's bunch of kids after she dies, and a very different life out in the countryside. It doesn't reinvent the wheel. You can see everything coming from a mile off, but it's got quite a nice warm touch to it. Linda Cardellini's in it as well, and this group of 4 real-life brothers, the Jansons. Some of the scenes are filmed in their family home, their farm, with their animals, and they're really good. It's a nice little tale. It's not amazing, it's just a nice little tale. So that's it for the movies. We've got a load coming up in the weeks ahead. Captain America Brave New World's up first, February the 14th, end of this week. Harrison Ford joining Anthony Mackie in the Marvel world. It's either going to be an utter mess with all reported reshooting and rejigging, or it will surprise everyone and be quite good. Then you've got The Monkey, which I spoke about, with Theo James coming out. The Last Showgirl with Pamela Anderson, which is being very kind of well received. And then next month you've got Snow White. You've got The Alto Nights with Robert De Niro playing 2 characters. Steven Soderbergh's Black Bag. Novocaine starring Jack Quaid from The Boys, which looks really interesting. And yeah, trying to plough through as many of those as I can. I will hopefully do the next video far quicker and not with such a big gap as this one. But yeah, we piled through loads there. hopefully that's given you some ideas what you might want to watch over the weeks ahead or what you might want to avoid. So there you go. Time to go. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and keep watching those movies. Goodbye.